The massive holographic display filled the war chamber with pale blue light as the Council of Worlds reviewed their latest intelligence reports. Representatives from 47 species sat in carefully arranged circles, their various forms of communication buzzing through universal translators. At the center of the chamber, a three-dimensional map of the galaxy rotated slowly, showing conquered territories in red and potential targets in yellow. High Commander Vorth of the Draknari Empire studied the data streaming across his personal display. His reptilian features twisted into what might have been amusement as he reviewed the file marked Sol System, Species, Human. The report made for entertaining reading. These creatures had barely managed to leave their home planet, still fought wars with chemical explosives, and showed no signs of unified planetary government. Their technology was primitive, their bodies fragile, and their lifespans laughably short. "This cannot be accurate," rumbled General Klex from the Swarmlord Collective, his voice carrying the weight of 10,000 minds speaking as one. "No species achieves interstellar travel while remaining this weak. There must be hidden capabilities we have not detected." The intelligence officer, a pale creature from the Voidwalkers, manipulated the hologram with practiced precision. "Our surveillance has been extensive, General. We have monitored their communications for 50 rotations. They broadcast their military capabilities openly, argue among themselves constantly, and waste resources on entertainment rather than defense. Their most advanced weapons are nuclear devices that would barely damage a single ship in our fleet." Vorth's clawed hand tapped against the metal table as he considered the implications. The hegemony had conquered over 300 worlds using the same methodical approach. First, they would study a species for decades, learning their weaknesses and capabilities. Then they would offer terms of surrender, giving the target civilization one chance to become productive slaves rather than extinct failures. Finally, if the species refused, they would demonstrate overwhelming force until resistance became impossible. "What is their population?" asked Minister Zell of the Crystal Collective, her crystalline form reflecting the holographic light into rainbow patterns. "Approximately 8 billion individuals concentrated on a single world," the intelligence officer replied. "They have small colonies on nearby planets, but nothing that could sustain their civilization if their homeworld were destroyed. They are entirely dependent on their primary planet for survival." The implications were clear to everyone present. Most species the hegemony encountered had spread across multiple star systems before achieving true interstellar capability. The humans were uniquely vulnerable, having put all their population in one easily targeted location. It was almost too easy. "Their military assessment is equally disappointing," continued the briefing officer. "They maintain separate armed forces for different regions of their planet. These forces use projectile weapons, chemical propellants, and primitive armor. Their space-based military consists of fewer than 50 vessels, none larger than our scout ships. Intelligence suggests they have never engaged in space-based combat." Vorth stood and walked to the holographic display, studying the blue-green world that rotated peacefully in the center of the projection. Earth appeared serene from space, with white clouds swirling over green continents and blue oceans. It looked like countless other worlds the hegemony had conquered, but something about it troubled him. In his experience, species that achieved interstellar travel typically developed more sophisticated defenses. "What about their psychology?" Vorth asked. "Are they aggressive? Territorial? Do they have any cultural characteristics that might make them difficult to control?" The intelligence officer consulted his datapad. "They are surprisingly aggressive toward their own kind, constantly engaging in small conflicts over resources and territory. However, they show little unity when facing external threats. Their history suggests they will likely surrender quickly when faced with superior force, as they have no experience with planetary-scale warfare." General Klex's collective mind processed this information with the efficiency of a supercomputer. Recommendation: assign this conquest to training units. The humans will provide valuable experience for new recruits without significant risk to experienced personnel. Estimated time to complete pacification, 6 hours. Agreed, Vorth replied, though his instincts still whispered warnings he could not identify. Admiral Rex will command the Fourth Fleet for this operation. 2,000 ships should be more than sufficient to demonstrate our capabilities and secure surrender. The Council voted unanimously to proceed with the conquest of Earth. The humans would be given the standard 72 hours to consider surrender terms, followed by a demonstration of force if they refused. It was a routine operation, barely worthy of the Council's attention. As the meeting concluded and the various representatives returned to their ships, Vorth lingered before the holographic display. Something about the human assessment bothered him, but he could not identify what. The data was clear, the intelligence was comprehensive, and the recommendation was logical. Yet 40 years of military experience had taught him to trust his instincts. And those instincts were screaming warnings. He activated his personal communicator and contacted Admiral Rex directly. Admiral, I want you to approach this conquest with full precautions. Something about these humans does not feel right. Rex's voice crackled through the communication system. Hi, Commander. The intelligence report suggests this will be a simple operation. Are you concerned about something specific? Nothing specific, Vorth admitted. But I have learned to trust my instincts over data reports. Treat this as a potential threat until proven otherwise. Understood, High Commander. I will maintain full battle readiness throughout the operation. As Vorth disconnected the communication, he wondered if he was becoming paranoid in his old age. The humans appeared to be exactly what they seemed, a primitive species that had achieved interstellar travel through luck rather than capability. Every measurement, every assessment, every piece of intelligence pointed to the same conclusion. But as he watched the peaceful blue world rotating in the holographic display, Vorth could not shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong with their assessment. The humans were either the weakest species the hegemony had ever encountered, or they were hiding capabilities that their surveillance had failed to detect. Within hours, the Fourth Fleet would begin its journey to Earth. The humans would learn that their isolation was ending and the galaxy was a much more dangerous place than they had imagined. Or perhaps Vorth thought with growing unease. The galaxy was about to learn something new about the species they had dismissed as weak and primitive. Time would tell which assessment was correct. Darkness surrounded the small mining station on the edge of the asteroid belt when the first alien ships appeared. The energy signatures were unlike anything in human databases, massive and powerful beyond current Earth technology. Station Chief Maria Santos watched her long-range sensors as 2,000 vessels materialized from hyperspace, their hulls gleaming with an otherworldly metal that seemed to absorb light. The fleet moved with perfect coordination, maintaining formation as they advanced toward the inner solar system. Each ship was larger than the biggest human vessel, bristling with weapons that Earth's computers could barely identify. The technology gap was immediately obvious to anyone who understood spacecraft design. Admiral Rex stood on the bridge of his flagship, reviewing the intelligence reports one final time. His reptilian features showed mild amusement as he studied the human defensive positions. 3 small patrol vessels orbited near the asteroid belt, their hulls marked with crude symbols that apparently represented different Earth nations. The entire human space force could fit inside his cargo bay. Begin standard approach, Rex ordered his navigation officer. Deploy advanced scouts to assess their weapon capabilities. I want to know what these primitives consider threatening. The Draknari scouts moved forward with casual confidence, their shields at minimum power. The first human vessel to intercept them was barely 50 meters long, carrying what appeared to be a single occupant. The pilot broadcast a message in broken galactic standard demanding that the alien fleet identify itself and state its intentions. Shall we respond, Admiral? Asked his communications officer. No need, Rex replied. They will understand our intentions soon enough. The human pilot seemed to realize that communication was futile. Instead of retreating, the small vessel accelerated directly toward the lead scout ship. Its weapons were primitive kinetic projectiles, barely capable of scratching military-grade armor. The alien crew watched with detached curiosity as the human craft fired everything it had before ramming their hull at full speed. The explosion was small and ineffective, barely registering on their damage sensors. But something about the attack puzzled the alien observers. The human pilot had shown no fear, no hesitation, and no apparent concern for survival. It was not the behavior they expected from a species that had never faced galactic warfare. Unusual, commented the tactical officer. The human chose suicide rather than retreat. This suggests either extreme desperation or unfamiliarity with standard combat protocols. Rex nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps they do not understand the futility of resistance. Continue the advance. Their next response will be more informative. The second human vessel was larger, carrying a crew of 12 according to intercepted communications. It approached the alien fleet with the same aggressive intent, firing kinetic rounds and what appeared to be chemical explosives. The weapons were even more primitive than the first ship, but the crew fought with the same inexplicable determination. When their vessel was crippled by a single shot from an alien energy weapon, the humans did something that shocked the entire Draknari crew. They abandoned their ship and continued fighting in simple spacesuits, wielding handheld weapons against starships. The tactical impossibility of their actions seemed irrelevant to the human warriors. General Klex monitored the engagement from his command ship, his collective consciousness analyzing every detail. The Swarmlord hive mind could process information with perfect efficiency, but the human behavior patterns made no logical sense. They fought like creatures that had never learned the concept of surrender. Their combat doctrine is flawed, Klex reported to Admiral Rex. They engage superior forces without regard for casualties or tactical advantage. This suggests poor military training or possible mental deficiency. Rex agreed, but something about the human response troubled him. Continue monitoring. I want detailed scans of their weapons, shields, and communication systems. These primitives may be foolish, but they are more aggressive than our intelligence suggested. The third human vessel provided the most information. It was a converted cargo ship carrying what appeared to be mining equipment modified for combat. The crew of 30 fought with the same suicidal determination, but their ship was equipped with sophisticated sensor arrays that recorded every detail of the alien weapon systems. As the human vessel was destroyed, it transmitted a massive data burst back toward Earth. The aliens intercepted the transmission, but their analysis showed it contained detailed tactical information about Draknari shields, weapon frequencies, and power systems. The humans had been studying their enemies even while dying. Interesting, Rex mused as he reviewed the intercepted data. They sacrificed their warriors to gather intelligence. This suggests more sophisticated tactical thinking than we initially assessed. The advance continued through the asteroid belt, with small human vessels appearing seemingly from nowhere to harass the alien fleet. Each attack was futile, each ship destroyed within minutes of engagement. But every encounter provided more information about alien capabilities, and the humans seemed willing to trade lives for knowledge. By the time the fleet reached the inner solar system, they had destroyed 47 human vessels and killed nearly 300 people. The aliens had suffered 0 casualties and minimal damage. Yet Admiral Rex felt increasingly uneasy about the human response. Their tactics are primitive but persistent, he reported to High Commander Vorth. They show no fear of death and appear to be gathering intelligence on our capabilities. I recommend proceeding with caution. Vorth's response was immediate. Admiral, you have destroyed their entire space force without suffering a single casualty. What possible threat could these primitives pose to a fleet of 2,000 ships? Rex could not answer the question logically. The humans had demonstrated no advanced technology, no effective weapons, and no ability to damage alien vessels. Yet something about their response felt wrong, as if the hegemony was missing some crucial piece of information. Continue the advance, Vorth ordered. Deploy landing forces and begin standard pacification procedures. The humans will surrender once they understand the hopelessness of their situation. As the alien fleet approached Earth, Admiral Rex studied the blue-green world that filled his view screen. The planet appeared peaceful and defenseless, exactly as the intelligence reports had suggested. Cities glowed with primitive electric lighting, and small aircraft moved slowly through the atmosphere, but somewhere in the back of his mind, Rex remembered the human pilot who had chosen ramming over retreat, the crew who had fought in spacesuits against starships, and the sophisticated intelligence gathering that had continued even as ships were destroyed. These were not the actions of a primitive species. They were the actions of a species that was hiding something. The first surprise came when the alien fleet reached Earth's orbital space. What appeared to be floating debris and abandoned satellites suddenly powered up with energy signatures that made the Drachnary sensors scream warnings. Admiral Rex watched in disbelief as hundreds of concealed weapons platforms emerged from what his intelligence had dismissed as space junk. "Energy readings are off the charts," reported his tactical officer, his voice tight with confusion. "These are not primitive weapons. Some of these signatures are beyond our current technology classification." Rex studied the displays with growing alarm. The platforms were firing directed energy beams that cut through his advanced ships like they were made of paper. The weapons were not just advanced, they were using principles that Drachnary science had only theorized about. His shields, designed to stop any known weapon, were being penetrated as if they did not exist. "How is this possible?" Rex demanded. "Our intelligence showed no evidence of advanced energy weapons." The answer came from an unexpected source. The human vessels that had been destroyed in the asteroid belt had been decoys, crude ships designed to make the aliens underestimate Earth's true capabilities. While the hegemony had been studying human radio broadcasts and observing their primitive military exercises, the real human technology had been hidden beneath the ocean floor, inside asteroid mines and in facilities that appeared to be research. STATIO-NS Dr. Emily Chun monitored the battle from her command center 3 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean. The Mariana Project had been operational for 60 years, hidden from all but the highest levels of government. The facility housed technology that would have seemed impossible to surface dwellers, weapons and defenses developed from careful study of alien visitors who had never returned home. "Phase 1 is complete," she reported to the Global Defense Council. "The orbital platforms have destroyed their advanced scouts." Initiating Phase 2 of the defensive grid. Around the world, installations that had been disguised as everything from weather stations to mining operations revealed their true purpose. The aliens had been watching Earth for decades, but they had been watching a carefully constructed lie. The real human civilization was far more advanced than any external observer could have detected. The ground-based weapons that engaged the alien landing craft were unlike anything in known physics. They fired projectiles that seemed to ignore the laws of space and time, appearing instantly at their targets regardless of distance. The Drachnary shields that had protected them from every known weapon were useless against weapons that bypassed normal space entirely. General Martinez coordinated the ground defense from her bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains. She had spent 30 years preparing for this moment, studying every piece of alien technology that had fallen into human hands. The crashed ships, the captured scouts, the mysterious disappearances that the aliens had attributed to navigation errors, had all been carefully orchestrated intelligence-gathering operations. "Sir, the enemy is attempting to establish a beachhead near the European continent," reported her communications officer. "Deploy the enhanced units," Martinez ordered. "Show them what human soldiers can really do." The Drachnary ground forces had conquered hundreds of worlds using the same tactics. Their soldiers were genetically engineered for combat, equipped with advanced armor and weapons that could level city blocks. They expected to face primitive humans armed with chemical projectiles and crude explosives. Instead, they encountered warriors who moved faster than their sensors could track, who seemed immune to weapons that should have been instantly lethal, and who fought with a precision that suggested they knew exactly how Drachnary combat systems worked. The human soldiers were not the fragile creatures from the intelligence reports. They were something else entirely. The enhanced humans had been developed in secret laboratories using technology reverse-engineered from alien prisoners. Nanotechnology coursed through their bloodstreams, repairing damage faster than it could be inflicted. Neural implants connected them to tactical computers that could predict enemy movements with supernatural accuracy. Combat drugs eliminated pain and fear while enhancing strength and speed beyond normal human limits. But the most shocking revelation was not the technology. It was the discovery that the humans had been preparing for this war for over a century. Every alien visitor to Earth had been carefully monitored, studied, and when possible, captured. The crashed ships that aliens assumed were lost to navigation errors had been shot down by weapon systems that left no evidence of their existence. Admiral Rex received reports from every front, and each one told the same impossible story. The humans were not just defending themselves, they were winning. Their weapons were more advanced than anything in the hegemony database, their soldiers were enhanced beyond natural biology, and their tactics suggested they understood alien combat doctrine better than the aliens themselves. "This is impossible," Rex muttered as he reviewed the casualty reports. "These creatures were primitive yesterday. How can they possess technology that surpasses our own?" The answer came from an intercepted human transmission. Dr. Chun was speaking to her counterpart in the Antarctic facility, discussing the deployment of weapon systems that had been hidden for decades. The conversation revealed the shocking truth. Humanity had been visited by alien scouts for over 200 years, and not a single one had ever returned home. "Project Deception has been successful beyond our expectations," Chun was saying. "The enemy believes they are facing a primitive species just as we intended. They have no idea that we have been studying their technology since before their great-grandfathers were born." The realization hit Rex like a physical blow. The humans had not just been hiding their capabilities, they had been actively deceiving the entire galaxy. Every piece of intelligence the hegemony had gathered was exactly what the humans had wanted them to believe. The primitive radio broadcasts, the crude military exercises, the apparent disunity among human nations, all of it had been an elaborate deception designed to make potential enemies underestimate Earth's true strength. "Admiral," his communications officer called out urgently, "we are receiving a transmission from the human military command." The message was brief and delivered in perfect galactic standard by a human who clearly understood alien psychology. "This is General Martinez of the Earth Defense Force. We are prepared to accept your surrender. You have 60 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare for boarding. Any ship that attempts to flee will be destroyed." Rex stared at the transmission in disbelief. The humans were demanding his surrender. The species he had come to conquer was treating him like a defeated enemy. The tactical situation made it clear that they had the capability to back up their demands. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked his tactical officer. Rex looked at the displays showing his fleet being systematically destroyed by weapons that should not exist, wielded by a species that had convinced the galaxy they were primitive and weak. The humans had not just prepared for this war, they had orchestrated it, allowing the hegemony to believe they were easy prey while developing the capability to destroy them utterly. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Rex considered the possibility that he had made a terrible mistake in underestimating his enemy. Panic spread through the hegemony fleet faster than wildfire as ship after ship disappeared from the tactical display. Admiral Rex watched his forces being systematically destroyed by weapons that seemed to materialize from empty space. The humans were not just fighting back, they were hunting his fleet with the efficiency of apex predators. "Emergency retreat," Rex ordered, his voice barely controlled. "All ships fall back to the outer system. We need to regroup and assess the situation." But retreat was not an option. The humans had surrounded the alien fleet with weapons platforms that had been hidden throughout the solar system. What the hegemony had thought was empty space was actually a carefully prepared killing field. Every asteroid, every piece of debris, Every seemingly natural object had been converted into a weapon or sensor array. The truth was becoming clear with each passing moment. The humans had not just been hiding their technology, they had been using the galaxy's own surveillance against them. Every scout ship that had visited Earth, every probe that had mapped the system, every intelligence-gathering mission had been detected, studied, and turned into an opportunity to learn about alien capabilities. Dr. Stevens activated the final phase of Operation Deception from her command center in Antarctica. The massive facility had been built into the ice sheet itself, hidden from all forms of detection by technology that surpassed anything the hegemony possessed. Around her, technicians monitored displays showing the complete alien fleet disposition. All units, this is command. Stevens broadcast on the Human Tactical Network. Phase 4 is now active. Deploy the real fleet. The space around Earth began to shimmer as thousands of human vessels dropped their cloaking fields. These were not the primitive craft the aliens had encountered earlier, but sleek warships that incorporated technology from dozens of conquered alien civilizations. Each ship was a hybrid of human engineering and alien science, designed specifically to counter hegemony weapons and tactics. Admiral Rex stared at the tactical display in horror as the human fleet materialized around his forces. The ships were not just numerous, they were advanced beyond anything in the hegemony database. Their hulls were composed of materials that seemed to bend light around them. Their weapons fired projectiles that ignored conventional physics, and their movement patterns suggested they were controlled by artificial intelligence far superior to anything the aliens possessed. "This is impossible," muttered General Klex, his collective consciousness struggling to process the implications. "These weapons, these ships, this technology, it surpasses our own by decades. How can a primitive species possess such capabilities?" The answer came from intercepted human communications. The species that the hegemony had dismissed as weak and primitive had been spacefaring for far longer than anyone had suspected. Their primitive radio broadcasts and crude technology had been a deception designed to hide their true capabilities from galactic observers, but the deception went deeper than simple technology. The humans had been infiltrating alien civilizations for generations, gathering intelligence and studying their enemies from within. What the hegemony thought was first? Contact was actually the end of a very long war that had been fought in shadows and secrets. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the human command," reported the communications officer, his voice shaking. The message was delivered by a human who spoke flawless Drachneri, something that should have been impossible for a species that had never encountered their language. "This is Admiral Thompson of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered our territory without permission and attacked our vessels. We are prepared to accept your surrender, but only if you comply immediately." Rex realized that the human was not offering terms of surrender, he was demanding it. The species that had come to conquer was being treated as the conquered. The tactical situation made it clear that resistance was futile, but Rex's pride would not allow him to surrender to creatures he had dismissed as primitive. "Open fire on all targets," Rex ordered. "We may be outnumbered, but we are still superior warriors. Show these primitives what Drachneri combat doctrine can accomplish." The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The hegemony fleet, trained and equipped for conquering primitive worlds, faced an enemy that had been preparing for this exact confrontation for over a century. Every weapon they deployed was countered by defenses that seemed designed specifically to stop it. Every tactic they employed was anticipated and neutralized by opponents who understood their doctrine better than they did. The human ships moved with impossible coordination, their pilots apparently immune to the G-forces that should have killed them. Their weapons fired projectiles that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making conventional shields useless. Most disturbing of all, their tactics suggested they had been studying Drachneri combat methods for decades. "They know our attack patterns," observed the tactical officer as another squadron of Drachneri fighters was destroyed. "They are anticipating our movements before we make them." The truth was even more disturbing. The humans had been capturing alien scouts and studying their technology for generations. Every ship design, every weapon system, every tactical doctrine had been analyzed and countered by human engineers, who had unlimited time and resources to develop countermeasures. Dr. Stevens monitored the battle from her command center, watching as decades of preparation finally paid off. The alien fleet that had come to conquer Earth was being systematically destroyed by weapons that had been designed specifically to counter their advantages. The humans had not just been hiding their strength, they had been studying their enemies and preparing for this exact scenario. "Admiral Rex is requesting communication," reported her communications officer. "Put him through," Stevens replied. "It is time for the final revelation." Rex's image appeared on the display, his reptilian features showing the strain of defeat. "Human, what do you want from us? We offer terms of surrender." Stevens smiled, an expression that somehow seemed more terrifying than any weapon. "Admiral, you misunderstand the situation. We are not offering you terms, we are informing you of your fate. Your species came to our world expecting to find primitive prey. Instead, you found predators who have been preparing for this moment for over a century." The implications of her words hit Rex like a physical blow. The humans had not just been hiding their technology, they had been orchestrating this entire confrontation. The weak, primitive species that the hegemony had dismissed as easy prey had been manipulating galactic politics to ensure this exact outcome. "You wanted to know what humans are capable of," Stevens continued. "Now you will learn. Your fleet will be destroyed, your crews will be studied, and your technology will be added to our collection. Then we will visit your homeworlds and demonstrate what happens to species that mistake our mercy for weakness." As the human ships closed in for the final assault, Admiral Rex realized that the hegemony had made a fatal error in judgment. They had not encountered a primitive species ready for conquest. They had awakened a sleeping giant that had been preparing for war since before their civilization had learned to travel between stars. The hunters had become the hunted, and there would be no mercy for those who had come seeking easy prey. The void between worlds became a graveyard as the remnants of the hegemony fleet attempted their final escape. Admiral Rex had managed to save fewer than 200 ships from the disaster at Earth, but even these survivors were being hunted by human vessels that seemed to appear from nowhere. The species they had come to conquer was now pursuing them across the galaxy with relentless determination. "Jump coordinates locked in," reported his navigation officer. "We can reach the Drachnary. Home system in 3 jumps, but our fuel reserves are critically low." Rex nodded grimly. The human weapons had not just destroyed his ships, they had damaged their faster-than-light capabilities. Every jump was becoming more difficult, and the pursuing human fleet showed no signs of mechanical limitations. Their ships seemed to travel between stars as easily as atmospheric flight. "Send emergency transmission to High Command," Rex ordered. "Tell them that Earth was a trap. The humans are not primitive. They are the most dangerous species we have ever encountered." The transmission was sent, but Rex knew it would arrive too late. The quantum jamming devices that Earth had deployed were disrupting long-range communications throughout the sector. The homeworlds would remain ignorant of the threat until the humans arrived to demonstrate their capabilities personally. The first human ship to intercept the fleeing hegemony forces was unlike anything in their databases. It was sleek and organic. In appearance, its hull seeming to shift and flow like liquid metal. When it opened fire, the weapons it deployed were not energy beams or projectiles, but something that seemed to unravel the very fabric of space around its targets. "What kind of weapon is that?" asked his tactical officer as 3 Drachnary cruisers simply ceased to exist. "I do not know," Rex replied. "But I suspect we are about to learn much more about human capabilities than we ever wanted to." The human ship broadcast a message in perfect Drachnary, delivered by a voice that carried the authority of absolute power. "This is Admiral Thompson of the Earth Defense Force. You have 10 minutes to surrender your vessels and prepare for boarding. Any attempt to flee or resist will result in immediate destruction." Rex studied the tactical display and realized that resistance was impossible. The single human ship was surrounded by dozens of others, all equipped with weapons that made conventional warfare obsolete. The technology gap was not just significant, it was absolute. "Admiral," his communications officer called out urgently, "we are receiving similar transmissions from human fleets throughout the sector. They are demanding the surrender of all hegemony forces." The realization hit Rex like a physical blow. The humans had not just defended their world, they had launched a coordinated assault against the entire hegemony. While his fleet had been fighting at Earth, human forces had been attacking targets throughout the galaxy. The species they had dismissed as primitive had been conducting a war of extermination. "How many fleets do they have?" Rex asked, though he feared the answer. "Intelligence estimates suggest at least 5,000 human vessels are currently engaged in operations against hegemony targets," his tactical officer reported. "They appear to have been preparing for simultaneous strikes against all major installations." Rex closed his eyes and considered the implications. The humans had not just been hiding their technology, they had been building a war machine capable of challenging the entire galaxy. The primitive species that broadcast radio signals and fought with chemical weapons had been constructing the largest military force in known history. On Earth, Dr. Stevens monitored the global assault from her command center. The operation was proceeding exactly as planned, with human forces systematically destroying hegemony installations throughout the galaxy. The aliens had made the mistake of concentrating their forces for the assault on Earth, leaving their home worlds vulnerable to counterattack. "Phase 5 is complete," she reported to the Global Defense Council. "All primary targets have been neutralized. We are now moving to Phase 6, final pacification of remaining resistance." The human assault was not random destruction, but a carefully planned campaign designed to cripple the hegemony's ability to wage war. Every military installation, every shipyard, every research facility was being targeted by forces that understood their capabilities better than their own engineers. The aliens were discovering that their defensive systems were useless against weapons that had been designed specifically to counter them. The humans had studied every aspect of hegemony technology for decades, developing countermeasures that made resistance impossible. Admiral Rex watched helplessly as his remaining ships were boarded by human soldiers who moved with inhuman speed and precision. The enhanced warriors were not just superior fighters, they were equipped with technology that made their armor and weapons seem like primitive tools in comparison. "Sir, the humans are demanding to speak with you personally," reported his communications. Officer Rex nodded and accepted the transmission. The human who appeared on his display was not what he had expected. Admiral Thompson was calm and professional, showing no signs of the savage aggression that Rex had expected from a conquering species. "Admiral Rex," Thompson said in flawless Draknari, "I want you to understand what is happening. Your civilization made a fatal error in judgment when you decided to attack Earth. You mistook our desire for peace as weakness, our isolation as vulnerability. What do you want from us?" Rex asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "We want you to understand the price of your hubris," Thompson replied. "Your species will serve as an example to the rest of the galaxy. Any civilization that threatens Earth will share your fate." The transmission ended, leaving Rex alone with the realization that the hegemony was finished. The humans had not just defeated his fleet, they had destroyed his entire civilization. The species that had conquered 300 worlds had been eliminated by creatures they had dismissed as primitive. Over the following months, the few surviving hegemony ships were allowed to flee to the outer rim of the galaxy. They carried with them the story of Earth's true nature, warning other species about the danger of underestimating humanity. The humans had demonstrated that they were not just capable of defending themselves. They were capable of destroying anyone who threatened them. The galaxy learned that the quiet world in the Sol system was home to the most dangerous predators in known space. The humans had spent centuries perfecting the art of deception, appearing weak and primitive while developing the capability to destroy any threat to their survival. The hegemony of worlds ceased to exist. its member species scattered and broken. The survivors carried a simple message to anyone who would listen. The humans were not to be underestimated. They were patient, intelligent, and utterly ruthless when their survival was at stake. Earth remained quiet and peaceful, its radio broadcasts continuing to paint a picture of a divided and primitive species. But now the galaxy knew the truth. Behind the facade of weakness was a civilization that had been preparing for war since before most species had learned to travel between stars. The humans had won by being exactly what their enemies never expected them to be: patient enough to wait for the perfect moment, intelligent enough to learn from their enemies, and ruthless enough to ensure that those who threatened them would never threaten anyone again. The price of underestimating humanity was extinction, and the galaxy would never forget the lesson that Earth had taught them.